Hello everybody, in this video we'll explain to you what a logbook should basically look like so that you can get the most marks out of it. This is an example of a good logbook that I have from last year. It was actually one of my MSc students and she did extremely well, so I will use it. So what I need is a sort of cover page. The most important details on the cover page is your course so that I know what I'm looking at, your student ID, okay, so your student number, and I would like very much to have the computer name and IP address at the very least so that I know exactly which computer you're working on and I know which computers, which IP addresses you need to be working with. The student here has created some sort of table of contents, which is fine. You don't have to have it, but the more information you have about it, the better. In the second page, actually create an introduction for the entire unit itself to explain the layout of how it all works and how we'll use visualization and the computer that we're using, so the host computer and the virtual machines inside it. So this is a sort of quick diagram of Prometheus, the host machine that we'll have, and the virtual machines that exist inside that, some services are provided, and so on. You don't have to do this. She did it because she thought it would make the logbook easier to explain. So it's there. I'm fine with information like this as long as it's informative and it has a reason for being there. So first, lab sheet. Again, detail, username is VM2 for that particular student, password is localhost1. Of course, if you change your password, which I hope you have, then you don't need to mention it, and that's why the student hasn't mentioned it as well. Yes, you don't need to have your password on the lab sheet, on the logbook itself. So we'll start with the installation of the operating system. So you'll notice that there is a screenshot. So she's talking about using the DVD ISO image in order to build Prometheus in this case. You'll notice that the screenshot is cropped. So the picture is exactly of the window that we're working on. And she explains the step that she followed in this. And then the same happens with any changes that is made to the rest of the pages. So set the guest OS to Linux 7, to Linux CentOS 7, and then name it Prometheus, and so on and so forth. Hard drive space, and then 4 CPU cores, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and everything else. Scrolling down, you also need to decide how much information you need to have in there. For each of the screenshots, for each of the steps. So the part where she selected the software, she put a listing of all the software that's supposed to be there and then took a screenshot of it, and that was it. And then all of the rest of the setup steps explaining what happened exactly in each screenshot, so what actions were actually taken. Another important bit is piece of information is the networking to be used. Okay, so she was working on computer 78, so she used 178 for her Prometheus VM, and so on. Information like passwords that were used, localhost 1, and everything else. And then finally, a screenshot of the build system. She's moving on to the commands. Linux commands, we have basically a screenshot of each of the commands being tried out on the operating system and explaining what they do. So the command shows, lists the current directory contents, and so on. So this goes on. The first lab sheet is fairly simple. You have to basically build the operating system and try out the commands. Kill, RPM, networking commands, and all that. So again, just typing the commands, trying them out, showing what they do, and explaining what they do. Bonus round, install Google Chrome. For accused reasons, by default, Chrome does not run under the root. So what do we need to do? Go to this file and basically change this last line and add no sandbox into it, and that's it. Prove that it runs and it works, and then we move on to the second lab sheet. Installation options for VMware Player, how to install VMware inside Prometheus itself, the installation steps, details that are needed for everything to run. Again, we're going through the installation. Again, step by step, And then she starts with the rest of the tasks of the lab set. So virtual machine cloning, copying the folders in the operating system, creating new virtual machines. She actually changed the color on the background of each of the virtual machine. So each virtual machine in the network had a different color so that she would know which one is which, because eventually you will end up with 3 virtual machines. So you have the different wallpaper, then you know that you're not working on the wrong virtual machine by mistake. Nice network diagram with all of the information that we need, IP addresses, and an important table with IP address for every network card, VMnet 0, VMnet 1, VMnet 2, and so on, network address and broadcast for all of them, so all the information that you would need for the network diagram that you're going to create, and then all of the steps that are needed in order to run the scripts, make the changes, and so on, explaining a little bit as well of CIDR, so explaining why the IP addresses are used like that specifically before they're actually put into the script itself, and so on. So as you can see, there is great detail in this. But the important bit is that there are screenshots. The screenshots are explained, so everything that happens is also narrated underneath it. There is a caption under its image that explains what we see in its screenshot and goes about through the methodology of the lab sheets and completes all the tasks and so on. Okay, there's a bit of testing, results, and so on. So this is the basic idea behind the logbook. You need to make some configuration changes, change some configuration files, make sure to include them all. So it needs to be easily readable. So you need to basically crop and put a screenshot of the information that is absolutely necessary in the logbook. So please don't have full screen screenshots if you don't need to. I need to be able to read this at 100% magnification, and it needs to follow the natural flow of the lab sheets themselves and go through all the tasks, do all the testing and everything else. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much.